Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the HSBG podcast. I was about to say something else. This is episode number 100, and I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Bunny. Shady, how you doing?
I'm doing exceptional, Cons. There we go. For number 100, I'm throwing that in there.
Wow, exceptional. I'm doing pretty good as well. I got a hat from Hearthstone for the just to kind of feel like Shady is missing it. How dare you? Everyone blames Shady in chat. I believe
it
he
hasn't arrived yet. I want my box.
Those are excuses. You should go out and flag them down so you can take it and get it
I
on
should
time.
run after the van until they give me the box, basically. Yeah. I think it's that van. All right, let's see.
But yeah,
don't run after random vans, guys.
Yeah. Well, we do have a pretty interesting one. A couple of Hearthstone patches to talk about, some armor changes, some buddies changes, and we also have some thoughts on tier lists, and the Lobby Legends contestants have been announced. So, according to my information, might be wrong, but we should it would be interesting. So let's get started. So first thing to talk about is the weekly overview. We do always, how was your week, Shady? How did the things go? Were you having a good time? Were you struggling in the buddy meta? Honestly, I've seen your YouTube, and I know for a fact you were destroying people. it's not even fair. Dude, I'm watching some of your games, and it's just like, dude, he makes it so easy. It's like just so easy.
Yeah, so if you're watching the YouTube, you think all my games are
all of your games are so disgusting. I agree.
How does he high roll every single time? I don't understand, right? So yeah, that's 2 games a day, 5 hours, right? So you don't see the ones where it doesn't happen.
But the thing is, you do have the like you have your recent games right on the left side, right? Yeah, so like even when I'm looking, I'm like, it's just like first, second. Oh, there's a third over here. I'm like, Jesus, this guy's
slacking, right? No. Overall, it's been amazing in terms of the results. There's been a good steady progress to 15k. I broke that yesterday or the day before, I think. So that's been nice. I feel like I had this I got 14k and then I struggled to keep it for a bit. Okay. And then progress always happens in these chunks where you learn, and all of a sudden you have it, you see it, you feel it, and then like the next 1000 points kind of just like, oh, it happened, right? So that's the process I went through after, and then I think it's going to be similar here, where if the meta lasts long enough, I'll do the same with 15k probably, where I struggle to keep it, and then I learn and it's clear and I play even better, and then I could take 16k, but that's going to depend on the time. I don't think I'll have enough time for that, but anyways, very happy with that overall. I think there's a lot of things that fell into place. One of the things we already talked about, where I really ask myself, can this hero get first? And if it can't, then I need to have a very good reason for it. Like, I really don't like the other 3 heroes, or there's too much risk attached to the other heroes that might be able to get it first. So sometimes I will pick something like a Cariel, which I, funny enough, won with. So I was like, hey, you make 2 big mech rolls and nobody high rolls, you can win. But yeah, generally speaking, I will pick something like a Scabs, like a Test, something that has some explosive potential, where if I play it well enough. I've also been doing some stuff where, like, on 7 gold, I'm still on tier 2 just because I needed my buddy and all that, and then I'll just make up for it later. So these are these things that happen in the quest meta and in the buddy meta, where you can start deviating from the curve if you really understand the power of either your quest or your buddy. And something like a Test or a Scabs buddy, it can totally be worth it to be a turn behind, because you can just, hey, if you steal the ticket as buddy, who gives a shit if you're 1 tower tier lower, right? It doesn't matter. You're going to be able to catch up. So that's been really good. And also just working on, I'd say, my mental game has been huge for me. So I definitely still make mistakes, but my reaction to the mistakes overall is a lot better. Okay. So I think in a way I've stopped sabotaging myself as much. It still happens, of course. I'm not perfect, but yeah, I'm like, I think one of the most obvious indicators of that, when I looked at my match history, was had like 2 good games, then a
Mhm.
top 8, and then 3 firsts. And that usually didn't happen. I don't get 3 firsts after a top 8.
Okay.
Halfway through that first game after the top 8, I'm still berating myself.
Yeah,
And I
I
don't
could
have
hear
enough.
that. Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. So
Uh,
that I looked at that and was like, Jesus, I just shook that off and got 3 firsts. That's so great. So yeah, long-winded answer, but yeah, that's why I said overall it's been going really well and very happy with where my game is at.
Sounds fantastic. All right. Well, we do have some patch changes to talk about, right? It's been around 2 weeks, so there's quite a little bit of
Little catch up.
changes going on into the patch. First thing, we did talk about it a little bit last week. We had like a co-op, I guess, playing with Shady a little bit, and we did
Yep.
talk about it there, but we didn't talk about it on the particular episode itself, where we have some interesting stuff. The armor changes. There was another patch afterwards, going over the armor changes as well. So we're not going to really dive deep into that. We're really just going to focus on some of the buddy updates which have lasted. So first one we have is Kurtra's buddy, going from after you buy
Wait,
minions in Bob's Tavern have +1/+1 to minions in Bob's Tavern have +2/+1. So you're
wait,
getting.
which one are you? Which one? I think you're on 25.6.2, right? It's
Oh, you're right. That's the
26.4.
wrong one. That's true.
Okay.
Whoopsie.
All good.
Right. Right. The following buddies have been adjusted to be more powerful. That's correct.
There we go. Yeah, it starts with
Snow
Shambhala.
Shambhala, yes, is now armor tier 3 from armor tier 4, which I thought was pretty interesting personally because I thought Shambhala was playable and didn't really need a nerf, but I mean, or a buff. But what do you think? Do you think this was like the
Yeah,
right
I
buff
think
or
this
too
is
much?
I think this is overall probably fine, but
Mm,
for the people at the highest level that really understand Chen, this is a joke because it's already a very, very, very good hero there. So yeah, that's just one of those things where I think a lot of people just play him in like, oh, I'm just gonna hard roll for allies.
mhm.
And I think the key with Chen is you just go with the flow until you have your buddy, and then when you have your buddy, you force allies. So if you really understand that, you don't take too much damage. And I think a lot of people they kind of just like full YOLO elementals from turn 1 on.
Right.
It's like let's roll for Sally, right? And maybe not that extreme, but you know what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
then they probably take a lot of top 8s, makes Chen looks bad, and then once people play him a little bit more reasonable, you realize, hey, I roll an elemental every turn guaranteed once this buddy is on the board, and then I will level for free guaranteed. Hey, that's pretty strong. So yeah, anyways, I think it's not a good nerf or not a good buff for the
Buff.
highest level.
Okay.
But overall, I can understand where it's coming from.
I like the hero, so I don't mind it too much. Alex Straza as well, also getting a buff going from Tavern Tier 4 to Tavern Tier 3. This one I understand a little bit more because Alex Straza was a little bit hurting, so I could definitely see the buff changing. What's your thoughts?
It feels like Alex Straza for the most part serves the same purpose as last
It's
buddy
still
meta.
bad, dude. He's
It
still.
feeds Tess and Scabs, and then she dies.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. I've played one Alex game this
Mhm,
meta. I won it, but I full YOLO'd, right? And I
mhm.
think you got to do that on Alex. You got to full YOLO. So that makes the hero inherently not so good. If you have to full YOLO, then you're gonna eat the 8 at some point, and that's just hurts so much.
Yeah, it's too feast or famine. It's too risky, I would say. That's like the
Yeah,
biggest issue.
you gotta power level, and then you gotta hit, and you
Mhm.
don't hit, you're too
You're
low health,
dead.
you just
Yeah.
die. Yeah.
ETC going from Tavern Tier 5 to Tavern Tier 3. So I've played this a bit and I thought this would save it. Honestly, you're just scrambling trying to find something that works, right? You don't have
Yep.
that time to hit the nuts, I guess. Is really been my issue with it. But what's your thoughts on this changes? Doesn't really save it or no?
Yeah, so the big one we see is you used to get the early money. That's no
Uh-huh.
longer the case.
Yeah.
So now with ETC, it feels like you are just hoping to get a decent hit with this. So I had to play ETC in my run to 15K one
Mm-hmm.
time or two
Mm-hmm.
times or so. And usually my strategy is just go hard on a tempo buddy, and then I just play normal after that and try to high roll a buddy later in the game.
Mm.
So I made a golden Elec from Zarella, and I just used that for tempo, and it was fine. I wasn't like, oh, ATC is the nuts, but it was fine. And then in that game, I ended up um, finding, I think it was like Yog Buddy and some other good stuff later, and I managed to get the first. But that's a good example of how I play it right now. I just go hard to like make a golden Deathwing buddy, make a golden Zerella buddy, just anything that does well in the combat to carry you for a while, and then you can start to level and get good cards after that. But yeah, it's I don't think it's it's nowhere near what it used to be.
Okay.
This change was also paired with the armor going from 20 to 10.
Right.
So we've seen now that it's back to 15. I think that's more reasonable. But that's why this wasn't so. Normally I'd say if you give him 20 armor and you make it tier 3, you actually becomes pretty good because then you have a lot of time to do something. Yeah. So, but yeah, overall, I'm not a super big fan of the ETCA right now.
All right. Next up, we have Lady Vosh going from Tavern Tier 2 to Tavern Tier 1. It does lose 1 attack, 1 health, but that doesn't really matter. I just think Tavern Tier 1 heroes or buddies are just inherently powerful because you have the ability to control when you're getting that triple very easily and very consistently. And as long as the hero does something like into the mid or late game, it should be very strong. And I think Lady Vosh just fit that. So, what's your thoughts here?
It's definitely not bad,
Awful.
but I wouldn't call it great either, just
Right.
because of how many good options there are available. When we have something like Evulgin, right, that will automatically build a board of high attack minions. When we have Galliwix, when we have Millhouse, when we have let's say something like a Mutinous. So that's the thing with buddy meta. Essentially, when you look at someone's buddy, you're almost always going to be like, hey, that has some good use, and you can do some cool shit here or there. So with Ajara, you really dominate when you hit. Whereas with this, you're still rolling, and you only get the 1 golden buddy, right? With Ashara, you can split them and gun, and then have 2 golden buddies. And Wrangler is also so obscene with that buddy once it is golden, because then every Wrangler proc will proc 2 more times on the Ajara buddy. So out of the Naga heroes, I like her a lot more.
A lot more than this one, okay.
Yeah. It feels just stronger. Now this can be cool, but you don't really want to roll too much in a mid game anyway. So I feel like you don't use it as much as the Ashara buddy. The Ashara buddy, you're gonna be hunting for spellcraft anyway. You're gonna be hero powering, getting more Naga, which means you're getting more spellcraft. So you have that setup. Whereas with the Vash one, sure you can have some like kick W shops where you have 4 spellcrafts and then it's good, but do you really want to like roll 5 times and like get an archer and you're like, okay, cool, I guess.
So it basically, when it works, it's strong, but when it doesn't work, it's pretty limiting.
Feel pretty bad.
Yeah. So you're saying not something you'd recommend, like that's the takeaway, but can win.
It's not in my tier list.
Okay.
So I've made a tier list for later, and I've brought it to the heroes that I understand essentially.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. We have Sub Scrubber, Innie's buddy. It went down from Tavern Tier 5 to Tavern Tier 4. I personally don't think this does that much at all. But
don't play Innie. Probably won't play Innie after this. So.
Okay. All right, moving on.
That's a quick one.
Sneed going from Tavern Tier 3 to Tavern Tier 2. I think Sneed was pretty prevalent with the Boombox card, but they did nerf Boombox recently, moving it to Tavern Tier 5, so it's a little bit harder to make that work. So maybe that hurts Sneed in quite a substantial way.
That's this patch that we're reviewing now, so that's the same patch. So yeah, I agree. Basically, same statement.
All right. Putricide, Ticketing Abomination has been removed from the Fester Gut minion pool. Finally, I didn't understand why it was in there. It's still in the minion pool for the hero power, but you should still probably avoid that. But overall, yeah, it was weird that you play the buddy and it actively kills you sometimes. So yeah,
so glorious when I popped that on my opponent's board where we got the poison A-bomb.
Glorious for who? Like
for me, because I saw his whole board evaporate with 1 hit. It was funny.
Feels awful, but yeah.
But yeah, that's such a it's such an awful feeling. So yeah, I agree. I don't think it belongs in the Fester Gut pool.
Yeah, and the hero itself I think is playable actually. So
Yep. It's more like I'd say you tempo where at least 2 of your creations aren't going to be 6 drops. and then you just like have your
final
guy
one.
on the
Yeah.
board. And because what is really really cool is you can reborn the Fester Gut. So when it's golden, it will summon two creations.
Right, and then you're
So then,
reborn.
yeah, and then one of those creations can be an Eternal Summoner component, right? Which is like insane. So I've had a Putricide kill me from like 29 or something when his thing popped out 2/6 drops and then
I
respawned.
don't like that you can take like 30 something damage in a turn, but
So
whatever.
stupid, right? Yeah. Because I killed most of his cards as well, right? But this thing just can't. So it's a 3-drop that made 2/6 drops.
Right.
So that's 15 damage from one card.
Yeah.
It's like that's a lot. It's
Yeah.
like I kill your card and I take 15. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and not to mind like there's a Titus on the board and you're just like, yeah, all right, kill me now. Yeah,
Quite ridiculous.
yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
I thought I was doing all right that game, and suddenly I died.
All
Guess I wasn't.
right, next up we have Mutinous the Devourer's Buddy. It's moving from Tavern Tier 3 to Tavern Tier 4, and it's losing 1 attack, 1 health, so pretty big nerf. But this was widely regarded as the best hero in the game, and I still think it's still the best hero in the game, even with this big nerf. So that kind of showcases how broken it was like before. So, what's your thoughts?
It's still a very good hero. I think at the highest level, it's not the best hero in the game anymore. But you really need to understand.
What would you put like Vol'jin, Millhouse, maybe something?
Yeah, so it depends on the player skill. I think if we put like a perfect play, it's probably gonna be Millhouse, just for how absolutely consistently you can get to infinite. So if we are talking pirates in, elementals in, I think it's got to be Millhouse, because the ability to force Augur, the ability to force Nomi, force Magma Lock, especially with the Evolve guy, it's so strong. So yeah, Millhouse, Gallywix, those. But it's almost no matter the meta. If we put someone that is very, very, very strong on those heroes, you just do things that aren't possible on other heroes. I do think that if you don't feel that, so part of why those heroes are good is that they're good at exploiting. So when you are stronger than your opponents, you want a hero that can exploit that advantage to the maximum. And Mutinous is not a hero that does that, because Mutinous is going to do the same thing no matter who you're fighting. I'm going to make my big guy, and then I'm going to spit, and then I'll make some big guys. And then if you fight a really strong player as the Mutinous, you're always going to be thinking like, they're going to have Leroys, they're going to have Queens. They're going to like have a freaking taunted Leroy for my Deflectabot. I need to put something here, but what if they have multiple times? That's going through your head, and like you have a lot of things that will prevent you from winning the game. You're going to take second a lot of the time. But when you're talking at the highest level, you want to get the first. So that's why I think at the very highest level, Mutinous isn't the best hero. But for almost anyone listening overall, yes, pick Mutinous. It's very good. It's a very strong hero.
Okay, so it might not be like the best hero, but you would say it's like for sure the most consistent hero, and like it's hard to like, unless you get unlucky, it's hard to like go have really really poor performances, because you can always like hit the safety button and just like spit and then get a bunch of good stats.
The issue here is that the game can deny you your safety button. So if you are following the normal curve where you get your, let's say with the nerf, you're going to be able to transfer to the buddy on 8 gold most of the time at the earliest, right? So,
but you have to be like kind of unlucky. Like it's a lot easier to have the safety button on a Mutinous than a lot of other heroes that do well.
No, but let me explain it, right?
So go for it.
It's not that first jump that's the issue. That first jump will always happen. So you'll be able to transfer to your first buddy every time.
Right.
Then you transfer it to 3 minions. But from that moment on, you're not going to be able to buddy straight away. It's too expensive.
Right.
So the first eat, if you want to consolidate stats, will go on a minion that is not a buddy. And then you have one large minion and one minion that's half that size. And then from that moment on, let's say you do buddies, it's probably going to be your entire turn. You play them, you eat the biggest thing. If that does not jump to a buddy, you don't have the panic button ready. Then the game forces you to then eat your biggest minion again the turn after that. It jumps to a buddy. And then if you survive, you're good. But
the likelihood of that isn't like super high. It can happen.
33%, right? So you have 3 targets. and one of them is not a buddy. So 33% on that spit.
Yeah, but by that
That's
time,
one in
like,
3 games, right? That's one in 3 games.
okay, by that time, most people are like less health than you are, right? So like, you can like get a dead guy, Kofi.
Yeah. No, I mean, we're not here talking is Mutinous playable.
Yeah, I
We're
know.
talking is he like the consistent powerhouse here,
I would say so.
right? Yeah, but I'm just saying there he lost consistency for sure,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, but I
Because
think I'm saying like compared to some of the other high tier heroes, it's a lot easier to like feel safe on
right.
Mutinous.
Yeah. So if you are, especially if you are not as comfortable, right, on a galley or on a millhouse, pick Mutinous 100%.
Okay.
It's a strong hero. I'm never gonna sit here and make the case that it's a weak hero. No, not at all.
All
Does
right.
changing the tier increase the damage to the opponent? So that's a question in chat, right, from the live
Oh
chat.
yeah, it would. Yeah.
No, well, yeah, but in this case, changing the tier means it costs you more money. So that's a big nerf. So by changing the tier, this is a very big thing that we see. So
Oh,
before I would get it out on 7 gold
yeah.
sometimes, and then we're talking like you're untouchable, right? So you get it out on 7 gold. That means you increase the process by or speed up the process by one whole turn. It also means that turn where I said, oh, you're not going to be able to get your 2 buddies out, you will be able to get your 2 buddies out. So you can start spitting to the buddies straight away. So if we are talking pre-nerf Mutinous, like you will be able to get it on 7 gold sometimes, most of the time if you play it right. And then you'll be able to transfer it. And then we are 1 turn earlier, and then now there is like extremely little chance that you will die before you get to do the big transfer. Once you do the big transfer on Millhouse, you're basically top 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, right?
Yeah, we're moving on.
All right, moving on. We've got Captain Hook Tuss Buddy. It's going from Terror Tier 4 to Terror Tier 5. Personally, I still think this doesn't like solve it. It's going to be a little bit harder to get the setup, but like, what if you can survive with the buddy on the ground and you can use your hero pad, you win. Well, you don't win, but like you're so ahead. So like obviously it's slower, so you're not gonna pop off as fast. But if you can pop off, you're like super happy. So I don't think this like solves the problem of like how it plays or how you feel after you get it to work, but it is slower.
It's indeed slower, and that is very important on this kind of mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like when you're playing Test Buddy or Scabs Buddy.
Mm-hmm.
1 turn can absolutely make the
Can
difference.
matter, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we saw that with the Mutants as well. 1 turn can make the difference. We saw that last buddy meta as well, right? The 1% on your buddy meter can be a first or an eighth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it absolutely matters. I think if you have a good hook test game, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But I think the chance that you get a bad hook test game is now
It's
higher.
a lot higher, yeah. That's true.
Yeah, before you could really brute force it, right? Be like, fuck it, I'll pay the 12. Now it's like I literally can't afford it. I can't get it. It's locked. I can't get it. So yeah, that is the problem now. Or if you're having a bad hook this game, this is not just gonna be there. Because before, what you would just do is like, okay, no matter what, I'll just pay the money. I'll get my golden buddy. Then in a bad game, I'll get a 5-drop. In a good game, I'll get a 6-drop.
Yeah.
I'll eat the 5-drop. I'll get 10 gold back, and then I have a turn.
Yeah.
But if you have to pay 16 gold to do that, then you're like, okay, I'm selling half my board. I can't do that. So it does matter. If you have a bad game, you're losing. Your buddy is expensive, and it is behind that extra paywall. So yeah, it matters. It's a nerf, and we'll see in the tier list. Hooktusk is not in my personal S tier at the moment because of it.
Okay. It's just the risk is too high, basically.
Yeah, it's still a good hero, but it's just it's that feeling of the scabs or the test buddy is that you have to keep it on the board. You have to dedicate a slot to it, so you have to be snowballing, and that's obviously much harder if it's a tier 5.
All right. Next up, we've got Kurtrus, Ash Fallen. Definitely an interesting change to me because it feels like they respect the unit a little too much for me. I'm not a Kurtrus fan. So going from Tower Tier 2 to Tower Tier 3, I'm already like looking at it. They did buff the attack by 1 and the health by 1, so it goes from a 5-3 to a 6-4, but it's now Tower Tier 3, and I didn't like this buddy before, so you're going to have to sell me, Shady. Why is this okay for Kurtrus?
So when I was losing to Kurtrus, it was because they were doing demon stuff, manipulating the shop with this.
Right.
Mm.
Okay. So it's because of demons, basically.
It might very well be. I think
Okay.
it's also like just if you don't have to win the lobby, Kurtrus is still strong, right? Because you
Sure.
can just go hard on tempo, and then if you go hard on tempo, it's very likely you'll top four. But yeah, if you lose MMR for fourth, if you break even or maybe even lose MMR for third, then that's kind of a hero. This it's not as strong as a like in a tournament setting, for instance. It's a very different experience. Like if top four is a win, actually a win, then
Right.
this kind of buddy is quite good because you are very strong in the mid game, can work well with magnetics, and if you do end up getting a fellbat, you can buy a lot of minions, and then like with your last gold, you roll one
You're right,
time,
yeah.
get and then nom nom nom.
Sounds good to
So
me.
yeah, that's essentially it. I don't think it's a big deal for the meta right now.
Okay. So you don't recommend Kurch, is that what unless it's demons. No Murlocs.
Yeah, right now, if you are, well, I mean, again, right, it's always so weird. So for the listeners, overall, I would say it's not going to be bad if mechs are in because you can still manipulate that. But yeah, if you're grinding front page, then Kurtrus isn't going to be great.
So mechs, dragons, no Murlocs.
Yeah,
Well,
I'd
Murlocs
say,
if you're not if you're playing
yeah,
demons. If you're
pushing mech,
going mechs, demons is mechs is fine. If
yeah, I'd say Murlocs is preferable if you're pushing mech
mechs,
because
yeah.
you don't want like giant master of realities running out of control.
Right.
Because that's your counter. So Murlocs keep your counter in check, and then you can beat Murlocs.
Basically, it's more complicated.
Yeah, exactly. Like you do need to have a good handle, and then obviously when you're playing this kind of a hero, you're probably gonna lean into poison a little bit yourself. You're gonna lean into Leroy's and all that. So yeah, it is quite a difficult hero overall. So if you don't understand Kurt, don't bother learning him for the buddy meta specifically.
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that. We've got Waxadread, Heisbaron, Tagwaggle's buddy. It's going from Terran Tier 4 to Terran Tier 5. I didn't really play this hero. I don't really like it too much. I think Heisbaron is good. The buddy is like, yeah. Maybe you like it better than I do.
Yeah, so my Togwaggle games, a lot of the time, I will keep very good track of what's going on in the sidebar. What are people doing?
You're saying I have to put even more effort into this game.
Yeah, you have
that's a no for me, dog.
no pausing Reddit ever during the fights. You want to see what people have because understanding when to pull the trigger on this is obviously going to be a big difference in the result. If you steal,
you mean I can't just play this every time I get it immediately? What?
Yeah. So this really feels like Ticketus Buddy, where Ticketus Buddy, it's like it doesn't really matter if you can do it already. You're not going to do it before turn 8. And then with Baxadet to Drippy, it's really about, okay, do I know that this person tripled into a 6? Do I know that this person has their buddy? Can I steal some really good stuff here? The second set of buddies is usually Golden Manted Queen, because at that stage everybody has Manted Queen and all that, at least in high MMR. But you can also use it to golden your Theo, etc. I definitely like it because you can set up the big power spike where most of the time I will use my hero power to keep myself healthy. And I will just let the buddy get very cheap because you want either the buddy or the hero power to be very cheap so that you can do both of them in the same turn.
Right.
So the way it works out most of the time is if you are strong and use your hero power for fighting, then the buddy will be very close to 0 by the time you want to pop it anyway. So then you pay close attention to what the lobby is doing. You see some people tripling the turn before, right? So you know that they've tripled into good minions so that next turn when you do pop Waxadread, you can steal their triples and then use that to transition. So you do have to be a little bit flexible. You have to work with what the shop will give you that turn. It also makes you a lot of money that turn, right? Because you're gonna hero power 7 minions out of the shop. It's not a normal shop on, like let's say tier 4 where it's 5 minions. Now you're stealing 7 minions. And then they're usually very, very good minions. So yeah, I like this hero, but it does require some setup. You do have to understand when to pull the trigger.
Imagine doing that. Nah, can't be me. But yeah, I do think if you are willing to put in the effort, it's a very strong hero, and it's a good hero even without the buddy, or even without accounting for the buddy, it still would be okay. So yeah, definitely something to play with. Surgeon Naturist, the quest discover is now more difficult to complete. You hate to see it, but I understand.
I've played some of the Nathrius since then, and it has felt doable.
Okay.
Now we'll see in the little hotfix we'll tackle after this. They increase the difficulty again, so it might still be performing too well.
I find that crazy, by the way, but yeah, okay.
Well, then again, we don't know by how much they're moving the needle.
Right.
That's the problem. We don't know if it's now like, oh, you have to like do one whole death rattle extra, or did the death rattle not move at all, and was it just you have to spend 32 gold or whatever. So that's the thing. We don't know how big of a push. I mean, we probably do know, but it doesn't say us, right? So we'd have to do the math. We'd have to have someone do the data. Like, okay,
I don't
how
want
much
to do that.
Exactly. Who wants to do that? Yeah. So it's it'd be nice if this would give us exactly like, hey, this is the thing. But I'm also assuming that based on which types are in the lobby, the requirements are going to change. So it's probably far too much stuff to cram into that little segment, and it's just a lot easier to say, hey, it's harder, just take our word for it. So yeah, but it's not ideal to make your decision on which hero to take. But yeah, I've played it past at least one of the nerfs. I'm not sure if I played it since the second nerf. Yeah, so at least past one of the nerfs, it felt good still.
Okay. Next up, we have the minion update, Dr. Boombox. It's now a Terran Tier 5 minion. Used to be a Terran Tier 4. I think this makes sense. The card was too good. This thing was better than Buster. And I'm just like, how? What? It's a Terran Tier 4 minion is killing my Buster. My full Buster comp. This thing is destroying it easily with leftovers. And I'm just like, oh, okay. It's like that. Like, why am I doing Buster anymore?
This was such a dumb thing on Tier 4. So I agree, yes. And it's made the meta a lot better, where it's so much harder to golden it now.
Okay.
Golden 5-drops are a lot harder to get, of course.
Yeah. All right. I'm down. All right. We do have more updates. So this was the patch last week, but we also have another server-side hotfix that came just a couple days ago. This one does focus more on the armor side of things, but they do have a little bit more at the end. So we have a couple of heroes having less armor. Tradebricks, Ysera, Shadowar, Tavish, Alex Drowser, Shambhala, any Lord Brera, Professor of Putrefied, and Lord Jirax. Does anything jump out to you there?
So we are now seeing Galliwix go to 35 total health. So
that is correct.
Cool to see that they can do that. The like, hey, how much do you like your Galliwix? And I probably still like it enough that I will take it. But
I mean, Ysera also has 35 at lower ranks.
Yeah, but this is lower rank though, right? But yes, just a little bit too easy to spam roll dragons.
I mean, Ysera and Jiraxes are like the same power level, basically. Like
7 at lower ranks. Yeah, it's just funny. Yeah, no, that's the one that jumps out. I'd say like Galliwix going to 5. Eni going to 10 is weird to me, but maybe with the Scrubber going to tier 4, it was suddenly decent. No, I'd say these armor changes for the most part, unless something really jumps out, it's really whatever.
Makes sense to you, okay.
Yeah, a lot of this is strong enough that I can see it being nerfed. It's just the Alex Straza 9 armor. But I guess too many people were getting away with it with the buddy.
Yeah, just high rolling and calling it a day.
Bring that in.
All right. And then the following heroes now have more armor. We have ETC, Kurtrus, Lord Barov, Nazat, Sneed, and Edwin Van Cleef. So any of these jump out to you here?
Yeah, so we did talk ETC.
Yeah.
Went from 20 to 10 and now 15. This seems more reasonable.
Yeah.
So a 15 armor ETC, I am willing to try, depending on what my other options are. It's not going to be unpickable, whereas 10 armor ETC felt like, man, I'm not getting any extra health here for picking the nerfed cow. Edwin 19? That's really this, like, please play Edwin. Please pick Edwin.
No. I'm surprised Darrow doesn't get changed. There's, you know what I mean? Like, there's some buddies that
So
are just like, we don't want to change it. Like,
I don't know how many months it's been since I've picked a Daryl.
yeah.
Maybe in Quest Meta I picked a Daryl or something, right? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, it's a bit weird to
Hilarious.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so weird. That's like that was such a meta hero for such a long time, and
Yeah.
now it's like I have to legitimately think I can't remember the last time I picked a Daryl. Probably it wasn't as long ago as I think it is, but the fact that I can't remember, that says a lot.
Yeah. Off the top of your head, you're like, I can't remember.
Yeah. Gun to my head, I'd be like, give me the date you last played Daryl. I'll be like, fuck man, I'm dead.
But yeah, definitely these ones are fine. I don't think any of them jump up too much. You could always say Lord Baroff, but it has less armor than before a higher level, which makes sense. And it's a hard hero to play, so having more armor at lower levels makes sense to me. So all of this, I'm okay with. And then additionally, the quest from Shady Aristocrat, so Shady Bunny's buddy, has now been made harder to complete. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's that second nerf we talk about where it's
Shady.
really hard.
Shady is too strong. Chat.
Just getting nerfed, keep getting nerfed. It's really hard to talk about this without knowing how much harder it became. So I'll play with it at some point because Sire is a fun hero and I like playing it. But yeah, it's hard to say right now.
Every time you use it, do you go something like Shady? Or
no, it's funny. Like chat just goes roll for brand, roll for brand, roll for brand. That's every time, and I usually say no. Aww. And last time I also was like, guys, we can't do it. And then I rolled a brand the very first job, so that was funny. But yeah, it's pretty funny when you can get like 6 quests at the same time or some shit. There's been screenshot of that. People, it's probably like golden brand for their second set of buddies, right? And then 3 each. So
seems like unfair, right? If you hit it with brand, huh?
Yeah,
infinite money.
That's a lot of money. Yeah. That's a lot of stress for one turn, though.
You don't have to use the money at the same time, do you? You can hold them, right?
Yeah. Okay. You want to stagger it a little bit.
Okay. And we do have some bug fixes, but we're not going to talk about those in particular.
Yeah, nothing that affects Battlegrounds.
All right. Next up, we have some tier lists that our good friend Shaded Bunny was willing to make here. Just a couple. It's not going through every single hero, just the heroes he feels comfortable with. He's played enough to really have an opinion on. And just he's separated into 2 groups, a personal tier of like, this is what I would do or I would tier list. And then he has one for like average MMRs. Some of you guys, yeah. Here's where the suckers, this is the tier list for the suckers, that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll start off with the personal tier list here.
I figured I'd do something special for number 100. Right? Okay. So usually I don't make a tier list, but I was like, all right, let me just talk about the stuff that I understand and I know and share with that. So yeah, this one is really like the one that pops out on S tier. So especially for the listeners, we'll go over the S tier just one by one, explaining who's there, and then talk about maybe the stuff that's special in there.
Sure. In the S tiers, anything surprise me?
Right. Yeah.
No,
you go first.
Nothing.
I suppose.
Nothing surprised me. Maybe what's not in S tier. What does any of that surprise me?
Sure.
No. The one that surprised me is the Gilwing. We used to, you were like, oh, Gilwing is so great.
So yeah, I did want to talk about if it's on the screen, that means it's at the very least playable. So
D is not D.
Yeah, exactly.
D is like B plus.
Yeah, so when it's, I suppose I could have changed the name of the tier, but I was going to be here anyway, right? So it's not like this needs to be interpreted without me. So the fact that it's on there means that it's playable. So we see a lot of heroes are not included. So a lot of the true trash, right, isn't on there. And some heroes that might be fine, but I just don't have enough experience with to put in a tier list, are not in there either. So it's about 30 heroes that are in here. The Sire I found very hard because it got nerfed twice and they didn't say how hard it got nerfed. So I don't feel comfortable putting Sire on a tier list right now because I mean it might be A tier, it might be C tier, depending on how hard the quest is. Anyways, yeah, so Gale Wing there is I can still take it, but it's just I think it's not so much that Gale Wing has become a lot worse; it's that I've become a lot more comfortable with the other heroes. So Gale Wing got left behind a bit. So in S tier we have Gallywix, Chenvala, Murloc Holmes, Millhouse, and Vol'jin.
Okay.
So I think the one that's weird to most people is Vol'jin because it's not a hero that
not to me. I'm like, Shay talks about Vol'jin, how he loves it all day. It's like this is
I am a Vol'jin enjoyer for sure. Yeah, the thing with Vol'jin is that if you have the ability to manipulate stats and you know what you're doing, you can just create these unfair boards, right? You have situations where, I think for most people, if they're playing Vol'jin, mechs need to be in because it's such an easy transition then into making high damage deflectabots and mech rolls and cyborg drake, etc. But if you are an experienced Vol'jin player, you can make like a big selfless and use Macaw. You can make a big Blanchie. You can make a big Myrmidon. You can do stuff with dragons. Like my last Vol'jin game was like I used Whelp Smuggler and then I got a lot of HP and then I swapped that to a Myrmidon and but you need to see the lines. You need to really set it up and Vol'jin is really fragile at the start because you really need to leverage that hero power. Otherwise, you will start taking a lot of damage, and it's very easy to not understand what you need to do, and then you're just like kind of playing it normal, and the hero power doesn't do that much, and then you're like, ugh, this hero is bad. So yeah, this is one where I can have some fun because I was like, hey, this is my tier list. I don't have to explain it to anyone in terms of like, oh, don't pick it if this, don't pick it if that. This is my tier list, right?
I actually think you have to explain it to everyone. Like you're in here, you're like, oh, why is Vol'jin at the top? And here you go, you have to do a 2-minute spiel every time.
I don't have to. I guess explain is maybe the wrong word. I don't have to give you the manual. Essentially, like, oh, if I'm not here, make sure that you do this, you do this, you do that. Like otherwise Vol'jin isn't S tier. That's the thing. Now I don't mind sharing tips and tricks, of course. If
no. We'll be here forever.
Yeah,
go watch the YouTube. I'm sure you have Vol'jin videos up in there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good idea. So, Shady Bunny on YouTube. Go check it out. The Murloc Holmes, I think, is another one where I just keep getting good Murloc Holmes game after good Murloc Holmes game. It's just so nice if you can get the turn 4. So on 6 gold, you get the first buddy out, and then essentially the first turn on tier 4 where you can triple your buddy into a 5-drop and then start stealing 2 copies of a card. That's
See, now the problem with just like Vol'jin, the problem with Murloc Holmes is you have to think, and that's really I'm really seeing a pattern with your S tiers. Like all of them are thinkers, and have you thought about the non-thinkers of this game? Huh? Have you thought about some of our struggles here? You're like, oh, Murloc Holmes is good. But I have to think, oh, Gallywix is good. I have to think, oh, Millhouse is good. Oh, don't give me that one.
Yeah, Millhouse is brain explosion in the buddy meta. Yeah, honestly, like Chenvala is the most straightforward.
Yeah, it is, and and that one is like getting buffed because it's 2 weeks. So
play elementals, white people happy. So yeah, it's so yeah, that's the S tier. I'd say the Gallywix and the Millhouse don't need too much explanation. Those are heroes that we talked about earlier are very good at exploiting a skill difference where if you are better than your average opponent, which is just the way the leaderboard works, there's not enough 14, 15k players, so you do get matched with weaker opponents. Those heroes just, if you have a good game on them, the chance that you keep first place is very high. And that's what you're after. If you're trying to climb when you're on the front page, you want something where if you have a good game, you're going to win. And that's what all these heroes have in common. If they have a good game, I will win the game most of the time. All right, then if we go to A tier, is there anything here that is weird to you or you want to talk about?
No, none of them really. They make sense to me, all of them. So
all right, excellent.
Yeah.
So for once again, the listeners, it is Tess and Scabs. So the thieves, Maiev, we got Zephyrus, Oaktusk, Lord Barov, Ticketus, Mutinous, and Reno. So the first thing that does jump out is, why is the Mutinous here and not S tier? Covered that a little bit earlier. It's just the chance to get first place is lower than I think any of the S tier heroes for me.
I will say you could put Mutinous in S tier, and I'm not gonna judge you. Like I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, for sure. Like no problem.
It's totally fine. It's I just noticed that, especially if you are up against a solid player in the finals, it's hard to first place as Mutinous unless you were doing
already
something other than you need to be doing something else than being a Mutinous. Right? If your final opponent has double Theo, he's gonna do better than you most of the time. Then the Thieves, I really love getting the buddy out on turn 4, turn 5 at the latest, because it's just such an important thing to get that economy from the buddy, but also the added benefit, right? So if we are talking ETCs in the lobby or Finley is in the lobby, these are really heroes that you want to hit as early as possible because they double up on your buddies. If you hit ETC, you steal 2 because you have a golden buddy. If you steal Finley, you have 2 buddies instead of 1, you steal 2. Then there are some amazing targets. You can get Zephyrus, you can get Ticadus, but you could also steal a Phelan buddy for a lot of money. So there's really a wide range. There are some duds in there for sure, but at least throughout my last few weeks, pretty much all my lobbies I've been pretty happy with the range of targets. So I think this is also a little bit lobby dependent, where you can get unlucky and have 4 heroes, like an Elise that really doesn't give you anything, a Mutinous that really doesn't give you anything. But most of the time you're going to steal something relevant. I'm not going to talk about all of them.
No.
Right?
Just skim it
I'm
through.
going to highlight. Yeah. So Reno is just super solid right now because the buddy is a tier 1.
Yeah, that's the only reason.
Reno comes with his own manual, is essentially triple the buddy into a 5 and then hero power to 5, which is very strong. But you can also rely heavily on the buddy because you get it golden so easily. You can golden 2 things in your backline: Stomper, Coiler, Baron, right? All that stuff. I've had it with like 2 Anubaraks where I just scaled my attack. So sometimes I've just hero powered a Weaver because I'm just like, I really don't need my hero power. I'm just going to play around the buddy. I'm just going to push really hard for Stomper or for Baron or something. And that makes your early game super safe as Reno. And if your early game is super safe as Reno, then you really don't have a weak spot. So it depends a bit on the lobby what you want to do. But I think most of the time, if you want to just have a formula, you golden your buddy into a 5-drop, and then you use your Reno hero power most likely on the 5-drop. I'd say I'll touch on Ticketus as the last one for A tier. Ticketus felt pretty good for me because it's essentially the embodiment of, if you have a good game, you win the lobby.
Right.
So Ticketus scales really well with skill, where you are thrown a problem, which is, hey, survive until turn 8, then use that to survive until turn 12, and then you win the game. So if you could solve that puzzle, then it's like, oh, the win condition is built in, because then I get turn 16 prizes. And turn 16 prizes, you get the thing where like, oh, I reduce all the cost of all minions in the shop by 1. And then you start APMing, right? Because you have like Theodars, and you start buying a mug for 1 gold effectively. Like it's very, very cool. So yeah, that's why I like Ticketus a lot, where if you have a good early game, you understand what you need to do to survive, then the win condition is just built in.
Seems good.
Cool.
Now, I assume we're moving on to B list. When we go to B, the only one that jumps out to me is the Nixia. Don't like this hero, so explain yourself. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is a type dependent hero. So if the tokens are in, it's just solid. So you get Undead, I would say, is very, very good for her, because Risen Rider essentially protects your buddy and almost guarantees the proc. And then you can just have a large Onyxia buddy in the back and just play whatever you can. You will prefer Stomper, because that is just so good. Because every time your whelp spawns, Stomper procs. It's so dumb. So I would say the ideal lobby is a Beast Demon plus Undead, and then potentially Mech in as well.
Okay.
So, all right, yeah, let's go over everything that's in B for the listeners. Thank you, Gudek. So in B, we have Queen Ajara, Panda, Togwaggle, Onyxia, Rat King, and Flurgle. And
That's
then
correct.
Onyxia was the one that jumped out to Collins. I think the rest, especially if you know how I play, is pretty self-explanatory. Panda is solid, but I didn't want to put it in A because I looked at all the heroes in A and I was like, I'll pick those over Panda. So I guess that means Panda belongs in B for me. Queen Ajara, I talked about how I like it, but it's still a little bit of a gimmick, right? It's not solid as a Zephrys or a Barov. Togwaggle, same thing. I like it a lot, but again, I do have to rely pretty heavily on that one turn, and it can go wrong. And sometimes, you don't get a good hero power opportunity, you fall behind. Same thing with Flurk. It's this hero that gets going quite well, but then sometimes you don't. And, so essentially consistency, I guess, is the thing that we start seeing. Yeah, we start seeing that here with all these heroes, like a little bit that consistency. Rat King as well, right? Do you get that triple? Do you discover well? Rat King is still fine because the buddy is a 1-drop, so you can triple it easily. But yeah, these guys have some consistency issues, I would say. You start seeing that. But the fact that they're on the tier list means that they're at least decent in my eyes. Otherwise, they're not on here. So keep that in mind if you're viewing this, if you're listening to this. If you hear the name of the hero, like it's at the very least fine as decided by me, right, for my own purposes. Yeah.
Thumbs up. All right. C, you have the cat, which I didn't know you were a cat fan. That's a little bit of a surprise here.
Buddy meta, it's fine. Yeah.
The rest of these are understandable, I guess. It's just like, wow, Shady likes the cat. All right, I like that.
Yeah. So in C we have cats, Queen Whack Toggle, Finley, Varden, Elise, and Sky Captain Crag. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think cat is indeed a bit of a weird one. But it's not so weird when you see my pattern playing scabs or tests. So I just do the same thing on cat, and cat is a tier 3. So I get the cat out on turn 3 or turn 4 at the latest. I get the cat buddy, and that means that I get the extra gold per turn, and I can also then high roll with the win condition built in, right? So because the buddy gives me some economy, it gives me some options, and I like it. Outside of buddy meta, cat has no options. So
cat is amazing. Yeah, so you just have to be better than your opponents on average.
Just get good shops for it, right? Yeah.
So basically, what you're saying is that a random buddy from your opponents is better than a random minion from your opponents, essentially.
Yeah, you can steal their buddy, which is really good, right. But it's not so much. Yeah, it's like when you're outside of the buddy meta, you have to wait until something dies. And then, by logic, that's you because you don't have a hero power. So that's why cat is bad.
It's not always me,
No, but on average, it's you.
On average, it's not me. Maybe if it's someone else playing cat, I agree with you.
Yes. So we can indeed account for player skill. And if the player is much more skilled than the opponents, then yes, on average, it's not that player. But
see,
if we are talking,
fine. Here we go. Yeah. There we go.
If all players have equal skill, the cat is the one that dies first on average because there is no hero power to help you.
All right, just don't play it in Lobby Legends, Chad. That's the only caveat. Fine, whatever.
Okay. Queen Whack Toggle might be a little bit of a surprise. I think some people still have her as unpickable and playable. But the hero power provides a ton of tempo early. The buddy provides a lot of money, and then the buddy being a 2-drop means you can quite easily triple it. So what that means to me is I have a hero that has some good tempo early with some economy that can then use that economy to pull a 6-drop. That's fine. That's playable, right? It's not in A, it's not in S, but I'll pick it if I have to. It's fine. Okay. Finley, same thing. It just lacks consistency, but obviously you can high roll. You can get any of the S or A tier minions or heroes rather. But obviously I'm not going to put the thing that can low roll in A or S them, right? It's like, well, I can either hit any of these heroes or not. So, it's not as good as putting in there. Varden is again solid, but can also run into that issue where you don't copy the right minion, right? Or your early shops are bad. So again, consistency goes down. Elise is also just fine, right? But again, can run into that same issue where if your early game is not good enough, you can't really push the levels as nicely. And then Crag, I think, is good and might belong in a higher tier. I just haven't played enough Crag to be as confident
I
in
can
it.
see that.
So for me, it's here. But I think if you are really confident on Crag, like you kind of like the way how I've played Vol'jin, right? If you have played Crag as much, I wouldn't be surprised if you can put Crag into A tier because you understand when the power spike, you understand when you can push the buddy and when you can really level to 5 and get some stuff done. But I just don't feel comfortable, advertising. I know it's fine. I've played it before. I just don't know if I'm popping the buddies at the right turn, essentially.
All right. And then now we have the D tier. The worst of the worst. No, I'm kidding. These are all very playable. So keep in mind, D tier is still playable. It's just like, a little bit lower than the ones above.
Yeah, and here we see a bit of a different variable, I say, in why I like the hero or not.
These are like top 4 heroes or something.
Yeah, so we have Cariol, Greybow, Shudderwalk, Curator, and Gelwing. So Cariol, Greybow, and Curator all share a very similar thing in that they have a very strong mid game. So Curator will make a good buddy, a very big buddy, which carries you to the mid game, but then suffers late when people have Poison and Leroy. Cariol, same thing. She gets the buddy out. She gets huge buffs. It's very solid. Greybow gets the buddy out. Good tempo, very solid. But all these heroes have a tougher time closing out for the win. So that's why they are in here. I will pick them if I have to, but it's tougher to win. You can win on them, right? I've won on all of them. It's very possible, but it's just not as easy as if you are, say, a Tester Scabs or from S tier, a Murloc Holmes or a Gallywix. Shudderwalk here, similar to Crag, can probably move up if you're very comfortable. I've just played enough Shudderwalk to I played a little bit with Collins, just show him around, be like, oh yeah, you can copy Drakasat, that's quite nice. You can triple the token because of that.
You can hear power golden versions of the battle cry, which I was like, oh okay, that's
really cool.
You sold me.
So I think with enough comfort level, this can easily move up. I just don't have that comfort level right now. And then Galewing has that consistency issue where Galewing can definitely win, but he has that consistency issue where if you don't get good turns, so essentially my curve on Galewing is either going to be 1, 3, 2, 3, or it's going to be 3, 1, 2, 3. So essentially it ends on the same thing. I'm going for 3, which is the Discover Minion from the Tavern tier, and I want the Golden Buddy for that one to proc. So if that lines up, it's very good. But sometimes you run into trouble. It's harder to keep your buddy, and then you run into a situation where you take so much damage and a bad fight can knock you out. And I have that less with the ones that are in A tier and S tier. So I would say in terms of potential, pop-off potential, the Galewing is up there. There is just a lot more risk accompanied with this curve.
Okay. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep, that's it. It's the
well,
it's like we're gonna talk about the other one as well, right? So I made a more user friendly one, whereas I talk about.
What do you mean? So this looks perfect to me. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I get
just play Vol'jin S tier. Yeah. So I made one where if you're like, okay, Shady, tell me what to play, right? Then I have the one for you as well. So if you just want to get my opinion on what I think are user friendly heroes. So I also didn't want to cover every single hero because first of all, those tier lists are long and nobody gives a shit about the last 2 tiers anyway. So
damn.
that's true, man. Like I don't care. So I wanted to talk about the heroes that I was familiar with, or at least familiar enough to put them on the tier list. So yeah, let's have a look at the other one.
Yeah, we got it. So some of the differences I would say, just looking off the bat, is you do have Mutant S here. You also still have a lot of the same tier. Like it's not like things moved around too much. You do have Millhouse and going down a lot. The stealing hero is a little bit harder. You still have Cat, you still have Finley in their tiers, so those don't really move too much. But some of the, I guess, more confusing heroes like Barov and stuff like that are moving down, where some of them may be easier to execute heroes like Onyxia is pretty easy to execute. Rena's pretty easy to execute. I'd say Zephyrus is pretty easy if you know what you're doing. Those just stay up or get even better, I guess, for the average player.
Yeah, I think that this is so we could talk about Murloc Holmes, right? That's probably it's all the way at the end of S, where I'm not sure if I've like ordered every tier, but like some of them I put them deliberately there. So
Okay.
Murloc Holmes end of S, because we did talk about you do need to be able to win those bets, right? You need to see which minion they have, otherwise it doesn't matter. So here I think it's a little bit, do you have the comfort level with that or not? So the reworked tier list, again for the listeners, S tier we have Mutinous, Chenvala, Gallywix, Reno, Zephyrus, and Murloc Holmes, with I think the caveat of, are you comfortable on Murloc Holmes? Are you good at understanding what somebody should have? If not, then knock it down. It's not going to be S tier. So yeah, user friendliness I think here comes to mind, where Zephyrus, make a 5-drop, make it golden. Reno, get your buddy, make a 5-drop, make it golden, right? So we see a pattern there. Those are two very, very similar playstyles where you just kind of do the thing, and then a lot of the time the thing is going to be really good. Gallywix is up here because I still think that Gallywix, it's debatable, I would say.
Yeah, it's 35 HP, shitty. Like, that one.
Yeah,
That one, I'm like, yeah.
37 here. I wasn't actually even aware of the 35. So Gallywix, again, if you are not comfortable with it, you can move it down. I put it up here just because it's Millhouse-esque, but a lot easier than Millhouse. Because once you're rolling, it's just, I have a lot of money, right? So spend money instead of with Millhouse, you have to keep thinking every turn. Chenvala, super user-friendly in that if you essentially you have to respect this rhythm on Chen is I like to get my buddy out on tier 3, and then I like to roll elementals on tier 3 to make tiering to 4 cheaper. So then I tier to 4. Then I repeat that process. I roll allies on 4 to make going to 5 cheaper, etc. And it sounds pretty straightforward. That's because it is. But some people, they just don't. They either rush levels without the elementals, or they go too hard for the elementals early. So I think the sweet spot on Chenvala is play normal, play for tempo until you're on tier 3. Of course, if you can buy good allies, go for it, right? Party Elemental is amazing, Sally is amazing. But most of the time, you're not going to get those. So then you just buy strong minions. I've had Shenvala games where the first elemental I got was my buddy, and I won that. So you definitely don't have to high roll elementals. So you just pick strong units so that you don't lose fights or lose as little as possible. Then pop your buddy on tier 3, start buying elementals. Tier 3 is where we can start to get Smogger and Cyclone, so those go very well together. Tier 4 is where we can start to get reroll and Ball of Minions. Those are amazing. And then, at some point you will triple one of your elementals. There might be a Nomi, or you might just on tier 5 start rolling Ragnaros, and then you start creating very strong elementals. Light Spawn is generally speaking also pretty good early because it's going to set you up for bigger elementals in the shop. You're going to roll elementals every time. You can pair Felbat with the buddy. There's a lot of options. So for the most part, play Ellie, but if you can get a Felbat, it's quite nice to eat the big elementals in the shop. So yeah, that's a small guide on how to play Chen. All right, and we're not gonna.
Let's not repeat the whole system.
I'm not gonna do the whole PhD on every hero here, so we can move on to A tier. Yeah.
I mean, but these are a lot of the same heroes. So as long as you're listening before,
essentially, I will just touch on the small differences on why they're here. So A tier, I have Onyxia, Greybow, and Cariel here, which if you remember, they came from C tier last time, or maybe even D tier, right? D tier, yeah. So Onyxia was up higher, but Cariel and Greybow came from D tier.
Yeah.
So these are heroes that are much better at catching a 2nd to 4th place.
Yeah.
And if you do not lose MMR for 4th, that's a good deal. So that's basically it. I can't play for 4th. I can't play for 3rd. I have to play for 1st and sometimes 2nd place. That doesn't mean I'm always going to get that, but I need to aim for that. So these heroes lose a lot of value for me. Same thing with Curator. Curator is also in A. So A is Onyxia, Cariel, Greybow, Whack Toggle, who has a similar strategy, right? It's very top 4 heavy. Then Curator, Hooktusk, and Panda. So yeah, a lot of stuff moving around, but the the thought process behind it is pretty straightforward. If it's going to top 4, it's much better for someone that gets points for top 4. Then I'll just quickly round it up. We don't have to like go super long here. So on B, the biggest changes there, it's Togwaggle, Millhouse, Ashara, Rat King, Flurgol, Scabs, Tess, Maiev, Barov, and Ticketus. Here we see a lot of those high skill, high volatility heroes moving down a lot. So Ticketus, Barov, the Thieves, those are all going to tier B instead of A. I still think they're very, very good, and I think you can absolutely high roll them. It's just that you need to play really well, especially in games where you don't high roll from the start.
Yeah, see, otherwise, and you're not going to do that. That's why it's in B tier.
So it's So for me, average player, I guess is maybe not even the right term, right? So we are talking average podcast listener, I guess, right? So because the assumption is if you are listening to the podcast and you're playing, you are above the average, right? Because you're already interested in this stuff. You're not just the casual player that plays on the phone on the bathroom. All right. Then in C tier, pretty much nothing changes here, right? I think we have Crag move down 1 or so because there's let me actually look at the other one. Might be C tier as well. Yeah, no, Crag even stayed the same. No, I think that's the basic premise of the tier list is that the heroes that have more volatility and that require more input to make them work, they go down, and heroes that have more of a set plan, they go up. So Zephyrus Reno, they go up because it's very straightforward to create that triple. We see Carriol, Greybow moving up because they're very good at top 4ing, but not winning the game. But that's not a requirement if you're not front page. All right, and that's it. I know it's a long one, but I figured I'd make something special for number 100.
Yes, I fixed the the name of the title.
I like that. I like that. That's gonna be fun. So check this one out on YouTube if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. Do yourself a favor. Go to just look for HSBG podcast on YouTube. It's gonna be fun.
Right. Sounds good. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, we're there.
All right. So that's it for our 100th episode of the HSBG podcast. Definitely fun one. Always good to do this. We'll figure out what extra stuff we're gonna do in the future. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoy. You can send us feedback hsbgpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Educated Collins, Shady Bunny Live. And hope you guys enjoy it. And we'll see you in the next one.
Have a good one, everyone.